Morning, everyone. Well, actually, it's noon now, so good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Audrey is joining me today to pop some things into the chat window. So have a read of those things. I'm going to be going through the cloud security monitoring and analytics solution capabilities with Sumo Logic. I've got a little presentation up front, and then we'll jump into the platform and show you what it's about. Feel free to reach out to me later as well if you want to have more detail there, but also feel free to engage in the chat, and I'll see what I can do to answer those questions here live with you today. Yeah, I'm going to turn my camera off so you can see the screen a little better, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions here. So to begin with, we have some with a few solutions that address security at Sumo Logic. We're going to be talking about one today that is in the box there, cloud security monitoring analytics, but I'll mention briefly those other three quickly. Audit and compliance, that's a capability of the core Sumo product, and it's available with really kind of anything you want to do with a product. We have reports in there for things like PCI, so credit card type things, as well as others. The idea is that as you're bringing in all of your logs, you're going to know what's going on in the systems, and you can report on these. There are some that are out of the box, and you can, of course, create your own if you have some sort of unique requirement that you need to meet, or if you have a bespoke system you need to address here. And that applies for anything here, really. So audit and compliance is kind of the lowest level. That it's not really security, because you're not necessarily addressing a security aspect in the sense that you're looking for an intruder necessarily, but you are reporting on some things to make sure that you're meeting those minimum requirements for compliance and audit purposes. Cloud security monitoring and analytics is a step up from that, because we're actively looking for anybody that's trying to breach your systems, right? So we're looking for the people that have a number of failed attempts before a success, for example, or unusual behavior, or maybe data exfiltration, something of that nature that's going on that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise catch. But we'll be going through that in a bit. The cloud SIEM is an additional layer on top that looks at just security. So it doesn't have other functions available for, say, observability or operations or business intelligence necessarily, like the core product does in the other two layers. But again, this sits on top of it, and it's really there to help you triage what's happening and detect those threats and address them pretty quickly. So you can do things like threat hunting. And then it will automatically link back down to the underlying logs on the core Sumo platform so that you can see what's going on and investigate. What Cloud SIEM does, and there's a demo, I think, tomorrow on Cloud SIEM in particular. And I think it's this same time slot. So if you want to know more detail, might want to join that. But basically, all the records from Sumo are brought in. The ones that you select that you want to come into Cloud SIEM, and they're analyzed against a set of rules that create something called signals. Those signals are weighted and scored, and then those are combined to give you something called an insight. And that insight will tell you particularly one item you need to look at, or multiple items. So instead of going through thousands and thousands of signals where rules are triggered, you want to focus on the insight. So it's almost like already having some level 1 analysts going through your data to understand what's happening, and then searching and hunting for those threats. So these are presented to you right away. So it's a very efficient, very fast system there. Now, the fourth one here, Cloud SOAR, is it's a separate module to everything else. It does not sit on top of Sumo Core. It can be a standalone product. So you don't, in other words, you don't have to have Sumo continuous intelligence platform or the Cloud SIEM Enterprise in order for Cloud SOAR to work. You could buy it as a separate product because it can't be a standalone. And it's all about the automation and orchestration of resolving those security threats that have been identified. So it does work with our other platforms, but it works with other platforms too. So it will give you a lot of benefit regardless of what platform you're using, because now you can take action on what's happening and how you want to go through. We've been around now for well over 10 years. We bring in a ton of data that we are continuously looking at in order to analyze for security threats. But we're one platform really for this from a standpoint of cloud security, cloud SIEM, and your on-premises security for your IT infrastructure. We address multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, on-premises items. Logs can come in from everywhere there. We give you a very fast time to value from this, and we have a global presence. So we can give you results anywhere you need it from any of your systems globally. I haven't found a log system we haven't been able to ingest and analyze yet. So it's pretty straightforward to do that type of a thing. A lot of the challenges today with some of this is that a lot of vendors don't have cloud support. So there are a lot of tools that simply just don't support that hybrid environment. They give you limited insights, so you can't really see particular types of data sources. Maybe they're bespoke ones, for example. And then they usually provide limited analytics. You don't have access to the raw logs necessarily, and you can't go then and search and investigate in those logs directly. So it becomes a difficult challenge to overcome with those three things. Sumo Logic is cloud native. We were born in the cloud. We've never not been in the cloud for this. We ingest on-premises stuff as well as cloud stuff and hybrid environments. Like I said before, there's nothing that we can't ingest that I've seen before. So it's pretty straightforward there. We have visibility across everything, not just from a security standpoint, but we can analyze any data that comes in, and we can analyze it for really any purpose, whether that is security or operations or development purposes, business intelligence, or if you want to compare it globally to how others are doing. And we have capabilities that are specifically focused around security itself. So we look at how you want to prioritize and investigate and respond to those active security incidents. So data sources, as I said, could be multi-cloud, on-premises. It could be a SaaS environment, external apps and products. And really, we bring all that data in to give you the monitoring and analytics cases that you need. And we give you that granularity to go all the way down and look at all the devices or IPs or networks or databases and whatever way you want to slice and dice this. And I'll show you a bit of that later. We'll drill into a particular IP, and I'll show you how you can look at that across every source that's come in, whether it's a SaaS platform, a cloud platform, on-premises things, wherever that IP is addressing your system. But yeah, it could be, we could use, look at this from a user perspective as well. If there's one particular user and you want to see everything they're doing across the platform. What I might do is skip through a couple of these because I'm going to show you some of this stuff directly we're going to go through this in the demo itself. So let's just go ahead and jump into the demo right now. So this is the platform here. When you first log in, you're going to see a screen similar to this, and we deliver you this this capability of being able to see different apps. We have an app catalog, for example, that allows you to see the compliance and security viewpoints for different stacks, including things like PCI compliance for certain things like Palo Alto or Linux or Windows or whatever you need, as well as doing things like threat intel for using CrowdStrike that's baked into the product that you're able to use. And you're able to tag those as your favorites and however you want to utilize them. We also have the security specific new dashboards that are coming up where we're looking across stacks here to give you granular detail around some of these areas. Now we grab that data and bring it in, and what I'm going to do is show you a specific a specific dashboard here, the security overview for AWS. And this overview is actually one that has been tailored for my view specifically. This is something that I wanted to see because daily, these are the things that I look at. It might be AWS guard duty, it might be VPC flow data volume, but I can get an overview for my day for what I want to see and how I want to operate. So firewall traffic here, integrity monitoring for event history. So this is these are dashboards that have come from other areas like the AWS Guard Duty app that we have. So you can tailor this presentation for whatever you want for your own dashboard. You still have access to all of those for AWS and others for S3 buckets, for VPC flow, that type of stuff. But you can also create your own custom ones. Now there are some out here like threat intel for single sign-on. We have a malicious confidence of high. This is coming from CrowdStrike. So we can report on this and see what's going on. We can drill down into it to figure out all the details. We also have things like suspicious login distance or improbable speeds. So this person, so we're looking over the last 3 hours, somebody logged in the US and then logged in from Egypt within a 3-hour time window. And that alerts us to that somebody's either, credentials have been stolen or shared, or it's possible they're using a VPN, but usually you don't start in the US and then VPN into Egypt. That would be a kind of an odd thing to have happen. And we can investigate these anytime we need to. If we click on this, we can drill down and we can see the actual query here and how we're using things like Haversign to calculate these details and figure out that distance and what's going on. But I'll drill down into one of these in just a moment. What I'm going to show you here is that we have an integration with Slack or Teams or other notification systems, however you want to get notified. And you can have different channels here. I have a SecOps high priority channel, and we have this detection that occurred at 12:03. We'll probably have another one pop up here in a minute because this is an automated system. But it tells us that this alert describes any network traffic activity associated with a single IP having failed authentication attempts. And it's actually associated with a snort-defined Trojan detection with high malicious confidence score from CrowdStrike. So this is one we should probably pay attention to, right? So this is a great notification telling us that there's traffic occurring between these two IP addresses in this particular time range right here from 2045 to 2100 CDT. Now, we're of course not in CDT, but that's okay. We'll figure it out here. I'm just going to copy that IP address because I'm going to use that a little later in a separate query. But if I wanted to, I could do something. I could take an action here, right? Any of these buttons. If I wanted to quarantine that host, I could. Now this is a demo environment, and I don't actually want to quarantine that because we've got this demo running around the globe for other people as well. But if I wanted to, it's an easy enough step to take this action here. But I can also go to the SecOps dashboard, and that's actually the dashboard I already have open right here. It's this other tab, this investigation response console, ULM. And we can see, there's some host activity going on here. The network events, the summary for load balancers, where people logging in from. If I start moving down in here, I can see what's going on. It gives me more granular detail as I continue to zoom in. So it's a nice feature to be able to see that and be able to see where people are coming in from. Because if I don't have all these thousands of users, but I see somebody logging in from, say, Brazil, that's quite telling because I don't have anybody in Brazil. So it's worth going and investigating that type of a thing. As we go down through here, we can see there are authentication attempts for in this case. What we're looking at here is an outlier. This pink triangle is what we call an outlier. This blue line is the actual number of authentication attempts, and what we've done is this kind of pinkish purplish haze around it is part of the outlier function, giving me the standard deviations that are occurring based on the results that we're seeing. And I can tune that. The default's 3 standard deviations, but I can make it 5. I could make it 1. I could really make it anything I want to. And I can tune that to look back over a certain number of data points and, how far back do I want to go. But anytime that graph peaks above, outside of that boundary, it will send me an alert. And that's where we got that alert. It's coming from here. So we'll investigate that in a minute. We can also see, like we saw in the last tab, this threat intel. We were looking at just the highs before, but there are also lows, mediums, and some unverifieds. So if I wanted to drill down into that, it's easy enough to go break that down and look at it through this one link here. Breakdown by resources. We can see, where are these all coming from? If I wanted to drill into any of these, it's easy enough to do that here. Just going to take you down the page a bit more for things like IP anomalies for AZ range. We can turn some of these off if we wanted to by just clicking on them, but we can also see there's that outlier we saw before, that 201, 13, 187, 202. That's what our message was about. We'll drill into this one in a minute. Resources linked to data exfiltration. This one I think is always interesting because you should be able to see on your list the sources that are connected externally and know what's going on there. For example, let's say this MySQL database has PII, personally identifiable information in it, and nothing should be getting exfiltrated from that. So that would be a warning to me, because we're actually seeing that type of stuff happen, even though it's not high on the, it's not a high value. We can get a notification that says MySQL is having some data sent out, whereas normally it's not. So it's useful for knowing that. We can also track from those IOCs that we're seeing where they're located. So we can see that, for example, we had 58 attempts here for a potential IOC and go investigate that, or this known IOCs here. This one's pretty interesting because, once again, there's that IP address we saw before. And this is coming from CrowdStrike, telling us that this is a high threat. Malicious confidence is high, and that it's actually coming from an actor known as Fancy Bear, which is code for the Russian state-sponsored hacker organization. So we're going to go investigate some of that here quickly. I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to bring up this IP anomalies, and we're going to drill down into it. So when I click on it, like you saw before, pops this up into a query for me. I can see the actual query language itself. It's not as complex as it seems, because a lot of this is just parsing. Now we can parse the data as it comes in, and we can parse it in the query. The benefit being that you can see how the parsing goes within the query, but it can be a tiny bit faster if you do it on ingest. It doesn't really make a difference because the horsepower we have behind this is massive. The rest of this is really just the query itself. So that's not very much to deal with there, but we can see that there's several things that are popping up, including our target here. But the key is, one of the things I can do is look at my messages, and I can see exactly what's going on. These are the actual log messages. There's the authentication failures coming up, so we can see what's happening here. And I can see this from a source IP perspective. These are the IPs that I have. And it's easy enough for me to modify this query by clicking just on something down here, like this 201. So when I do that, it modified my query for me. If you notice that, it got rid of my where statement. It left the parsing in because it knows we're just going to look and focus on that one source IP and see what's going on. We have those 25 results back, but that's not quite enough. That's not everything that I want to see here. What I really want to see is not just authentication failures, but I really kind of want to see across here what's going on in my environment. So I'm going to quickly just modify this, and I'm just going to look for this source category in those source categories and look at that IP address. And I might look for, like, let's say the last, 35 minutes, whatever's going to give us the time range we need. But you can just do something simple like minus 35M to get the last 35 minutes. And it brings us back 514 rows here. And we could go look through these all. It wouldn't take too long with 514 results, but it's 21 pages to cycle through. I don't really want to do that. Might want to do something more like, say, a log reduce. And log reduce will consolidate all of that into some rows that are essentially a summary of the message. All the similar messages are getting linked together, and we know that similar things have happened. So, for example, this authentication failure here that we're seeing, so that happened 100 times. So 100 authentication failures in that 35-minute window. So that's an interesting thing to look at and be able to understand what's happened. But the concerning thing is that we haven't seen quite anything here yet. So I'm actually going to go back. I'm going to change my query again, and I'm going to look across everything. So I'm going to look for any activity that this guy had. And when I look for any activity in the last 35 minutes, instead of 400, I've got 1,400. So 1,400. And if I run that log reduce again, we should now be able to see that this person actually was able to get in, get authenticated, and what's the risk here. So they're probably the reason we have data exfiltration, for example. Yeah, we've got some remote code execution going on. Yeah, we can see a few things that have occurred here. Yeah, so every time this guy's, this IP has hit my system, I can now track that, and I can alert on it, and I can take some action, because now I know, this person has actually breached my security, and that's a problem. So don't like it when that happens. It's not a good thing, right? So any questions so far? So some of the things I might want to leave you with here is that while some of this may look complex, it's really not. It's very simple. We start with simply gathering the data, and the way we gather that data is from I'll grab a quick diagram. We have two families of collectors. We have installed collectors, which you see on the left, and we have hosted collectors that you see on the right. And the installed collectors simply sit at an endpoint, like maybe on a server or on a networked device, that you can reach out and grab logs directly from the device, or a file, or a syslog server, or something like that. If you're using containerization for Docker, Kubernetes, we use FluentD, FluentBit, Prometheus, Falco. For other application components, if you want telemetry data, we use OpenTelemetry, and we're standardizing on that across a lot of things. In the hosted collector side, so if you have hosted apps, things in AWS, Azure, GCP, or others, we reach out. That collector actually sits at this interface of Sumo Logic and the external cloud. So we pull that in maybe through APIs or webhooks or HTTPS connections. So all of that is secure. It's all encrypted in transit and at rest, but it's a very direct, very easy way to bring it in. And then once you have that data in Sumo, it looks like collectors like this is a collector for AWS observability, and all these underneath are the sources that we go to. So one collector can have many different sources of data that you're pulling in. So it's very easy to manage that. And then once you have that data in and you tagged it with different data tags or metadata. In this case, these are the source categories that these are in. You simply deploy deploy the catalog, right? The catalog item. Maybe it's an S3 audit bucket. I just want to add it to the library. You just point it toward the data source and then click add to library, and it's that simple. It's easy to then have that show up in your own personal area, and you can share that out with others, with the group. So being able to utilize any of these security apps or the compliance and security apps that are here, or any of the other apps if you wanted to look at tracing or web servers or Azure or whatever you happen to need to look at. They're all available to you. They're all free. There's no charge for these. We focus on the data you want to ingest and how long you want to retain it. So the other thing we provide is the ability to support you from a learning capability. We have a bunch of micro lessons that are here just on the home tab, available directly through the application link. The micro lessons are somewhere between 1 minute and 6 minutes long, focusing on specific areas that you want to look into. And once you click on one, you actually go to our YouTube channel, and we have many more. There are dozens of these things out there. So they're great little snippets if you want to learn just one little area. We, of course, have access to things like the cheat sheets here, the documentation, the community, so you can go ask for that, and asking for support, links to support. But there's also more training under certification. So this Get Certified will take you to our Skill Jar learning site, where you can take classes and register for free and take exams and have those exam results posted on your LinkedIn. So it's easy enough. Some of these are recorded. We actually gave one earlier today for fundamentals. I was on that. So we have a lab environment you get access to for the class, for whatever class you're taking. But if you want to get some hands-on use on this and you don't already have access to a Sumo environment, this is a great way to do that. The other thing you can do here is you can start with if you just go to sumologic.com, you can start a free trial today. So just put in your business email and then pick your deployment region. Maybe it's Sydney, maybe you have GDPR requirements. So you might want to pick Frankfurt, for example, but really you can pick where you want this to land and it stays there. It doesn't move. We can't move it because of security concerns, but just click on wherever you want it to go, and then click into the I agree to the service level agreement and sign up. And feel free to ping me. We have quite a bit of support for this type of thing. These trials can become your production system. So keep that in mind as you go through. So happy to support you there. And you're also welcome to reach out to me on our Slack channel. So slack.sumologic.com. You can go register there. Feel free to ping me. Just message me and we can have a discussion there as well. Or you can reach me through email, jashburn@sumologic.com. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time today. I haven't seen any questions come up. If there's anything that you have to ask, please feel free to. Otherwise, I think we're all good today. Thanks, guys. Take care, and I'll talk to you later.